What careers become available at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and international markets? Wondering how to leverage your skills in a field that combines innovation with life-saving technologies? Welcome to another episode of Neurocareers Doing the Impossible. I'm your host, Dr. Milena Korostенskaya, bringing the insights into the careers in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. And today, we're exploring the cutting-edge world of medical device clinical trials with a special focus on Latin America. We're joined by Julio Martinez-Clark, CEO of bioaccess, a pioneering contract research organization that's driving healthcare transformation through innovative clinical trials across the region. Julio will share insights on founding bioaccess and how his company is mastering the complex dynamics of medtech in Latin America. We'll delve into how clinical trials are carried out, the regulatory challenges faced, and the immense impact the studies have on the approval and adoption of new medical devices. So join us as we uncover the potential that lies at the existing intersection of neurotech, healthcare, and global markets in this episode of Neurocareers Doing the Impossible. Hello, Julio. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you on our podcast. Can you please introduce yourself and let our listeners know where you are joining us from what part of the world? Thank you.
Thank you, Milena, for having me here. Thank you for that nice introduction. I am connecting from Miami, Florida, sunny and hot and humid Miami. Beautiful. And I am the CEO and co-founder of bioaccess. And I lead the organization we're based in Miami, but I lead the organization from here and travel a lot, of course. Today, I'm going to Panama for a neurology clinical trial, by the way, that we're doing there at a clinic. So we operate in many countries in Latin America, and the life of an entrepreneur and the life of a founder and the life of I combine all of those different hats.
Yes, and I just got to know that that's not the only hats you have, but you have a hat of a podcaster as well.
Yes, that too. Yes, exciting hat.
That's amazing. Actually, we had the whole podcast on inspiring people to start their podcast, and I think your story is inspiring in this way.
Yes.
That not only you are doing this absolutely amazing work and creating impact,
yes,
you're creating impact through podcasting as well, which is amazing. Can you tell our listeners a bit about your organization? What does it do? What processes it is supporting? And, what impact does it create?
Absolutely. I think it's important to understand the origin story of bioaccess to really grasp the value proposition of the company. Going back about 20 years ago, my brother Pedro imagined the company with his mentor, Dr. William M. Pedro and I came from Colombia many years ago, and Pedro became a physician. He did his medical training in Colombia. Then he came to Boston, to Harvard, to do a couple of years of research, an important lab. And after that, he did his residency training, the Case Western University Metro Health Medical Center in Cleveland, Ohio. And once he completed his residency, he went back to Harvard, to Boston, to the Beth Israel Medical Center to do cardiology and then a more specialized fellowship in interventional cardiology. And Pedro became, it looks like it still is, the only Latin American that has ever been accepted at this prestigious program. Very, very hard program to get into, very selective. So Pedro was able to get in, and that put him in a very unique position where very few Latin Americans have been, at least in the cardiology or interventional cardiology world. And of course, part of the training involves research, clinical research, preclinical research, all things research. And once he completed his fellowship at the Beth Israel Medical Center in Harvard, he moved to Miami and he became a professor at the University of Miami. And he was with a world-class team who he was working at. The faculty of the university was a world-class team of interventional cardiologists, at least in the cardiology department. And that's where he met his mentor, Dr. William O'Neill. He is considered one of the top authorities in the world in interventional cardiology. And Dr. O'Neill and Pedro worked together with many, many US device startups that were developing cardiovascular devices, advanced technologies in the cardiovascular space, more specifically in the structural heart space. And they did a lot of preclinical work, animal studies, and they also did a lot of first-in-human, early feasibility work with these technologies. They traveled around the world. They understood how these trials are done, etc. But anyway, the point is that they understood also the struggle that US medical device companies face when they want to do a first-in-human or early feasibility clinical trial. In the United States, it's really difficult to get patients enrolled. It's really laborious to navigate the hospital systems and to get meetings with potential investigators, to have IRB approvals at these hospitals, because these are larger institutions and they just move slow, not to mention the FDA. It's very uncertain. The requirements are extremely high and unpredictable, uncertain, etc. And the cost associated with doing these procedures in the United States. So a lot of medical device companies, I would say probably 80, 90% of US medical device companies go overseas for their first in human early feasibility clinical trials. And in all therapeutic areas, not only in cardiology, in neurology, in orthopedics, in many, many therapeutic areas. So Pedro and Dr. O'Neill were doing first in human trials in Latin America, in Paraguay, Colombia, because the University of Miami has these connections because of the geographical location of the university. And they realized that there was nobody helping these companies with these type of trials in Latin America. The trials that they were doing were kind of informal trials in the way that there was really no contract research organization helping them. It was just one person inside the university sitting at a desk trying to coordinate all these, the regulatory approvals, the importation of the devices, the management, the budget, the patients, everything. So it was just a one-man operation that needed to scale to a team, to an organization, a professional organization. And that's when they decided to create a company outside of the university just for supporting US medical device startups that were working in cardiovascular devices. But organically, the company expanded to other areas, and fast forward almost 20 years now that we've been in existence. We've done cardiology, neurology, orthopedics, general surgery, peripheral vascular devices, urology devices, a little bit of everything, ophthalmology, and beyond Colombia. I mean, we started in Colombia and Cali, then we expanded to Medellin, then to Barranquilla, Bogota, and then we expanded to Mexico, Dominican Republic, Panama, El Salvador, Paraguay, and then we are growing and growing the organization. Yeah.
Yes, that is amazing. So, if you compare that time when you just started and now, what impact have been created?
Well, the impact is in many directions, Milena. I would say that the first impact, visible, physical impact, is when you come into the OR with a very innovative device that has not been tested in the world, has only been tested in a few animals, that is going to be tested for the first time in humans. And there's so much preclinical testing that most likely the device will work and most likely the device will change somebody's life. And that's exactly what we see. We see patients coming into the OR with a disease that has no treatment available, and they come out of the OR with a different life, with a smile on their faces, because we were able to make an impact in their lives. That's the first impact. And the second impact, of course, is to bring more innovation into the market so that not only one patient can benefit, because these trials, the first in human early feasibility trials that we're discussing today, are very small, 5, 10, up to 20 patients, no more than that. So the impact, if you look at the numbers, is not very large, but if you look at the impact in each one of them, I mean, for them, it really makes a difference. But the idea is to really create an impact in millions and millions of people around the world. And that's what we're helping to create.
Can you tell a little bit about the challenges that those early feasibility studies are facing? Why it is so important to support those studies and why there has been a struggle in conducting this particular type of studies?
Yes. Yeah. The first struggle is what I mentioned in the United States. It's just difficult to recruit patients. It takes too long to get them approved, too expensive, and the uncertainty at the FDA level, especially now with these layoffs that are all over the news, etc. So it will become probably even harder to do these trials in the United States. That's the first big struggle. And that's the driver for these companies to go overseas, more specifically to Latin America. And in Latin America, you see, of course, a large region, over 600 million people, but it's also a very fragmented region. You have 30 something countries in the region. So every country has its own regulatory approval process, laws, etc. So the struggle is how to navigate those waters in Latin America. And that's what we help these companies navigate the waters. We have created a network of thousands of contacts in the region that we can tap into for any type of medical device or pharmaceutical trial. It applies to both, but we concentrate on medical device trials. And I'm going to get to the reason in a second, because we saw that the US medical device companies need somebody like us to help them with the trials in Latin America to overcome those struggles that we're discussing. But we also saw business opportunity because nobody else in the region was doing this type of work. The other companies that you see in the different countries, in Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, you see a couple of contract research organizations, they are focused on vaccine trials, on drug trials. So if you're a medical device company and you talk to a CRO that has only done vaccine trials, you're not speaking the same language. So that's another struggle. You don't find competent, professional, experienced people or organizations in the region who can understand your language, understand your problems, your struggle, and come up with a plan to address your problems. So that's what we do. So, I mean, we can talk about struggles all day long, but in the region, you have language barriers, you have regulatory barriers, you have network barriers because you don't know who to call. You don't have contacts in the region. We are kind of the matchmakers. We help somebody in the US finding the right person in Latin America, and that's what we do. You come to me with a orthopedic device, innovative, has never been tested in the world. Mm-hmm. In 5 minutes, I can tell you in what country, at what speed, and with whom we're going to get the study done because we have accumulated all this knowledge throughout the years.
Yes. Yep. That's amazing. Maybe you can guide us through some case study that you had, certain device that you helped to go through this early feasibility study.
Yes, of course. I mean, there are many to mention.
Maybe something in neuro domain, neurology, something related.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Yes. Let's start with the one that I mentioned earlier during the call. I'm traveling to Panama tomorrow. I'm sorry, today in the afternoon. I'm traveling to Panama because we're working on the second set of cases for a neurology study that is a company out of Harvard. It's called ASOFT. This is public information. AXOFT. There are press releases on the company's website all around the internet about the initiation of the study in Panama. There is a hospital, a world-class hospital called the Panama Clinic, and we are recruiting patients to implant a neurology device that is very innovative. It's similar to the Neuralink that Elon Musk is promoting and testing right now, that is also in clinical trials. So we're very excited about the possibilities of this device. It's going to be the first of many other studies that we're going to do with this company in Latin America because the device has to go through phases. We're testing everything very slowly to make sure it's safe and efficacious later on. So yeah, that's a great example.
Yes, thank you so much. And what impact do technologies, our new technologies like AI and other innovations, have on what you do? How do you integrate those technologies in your work?
Yes, that's a great question. There are two areas where we are integrating artificial intelligence in our daily work. Well, three areas. I just came up with another one that I'm starting to use. The first area is how we do proposals. I am able now to upload the study synopsis or the protocol synopsis to Perplexity or ChatGPT, one of these large language models. And I enter a prompt that basically says, give me the feasibility of this study in Latin America. And it will analyze prevalence of the disease, the population of the countries, etc. It will give me a nice summary. This technology can be tested in humans in Latin America. So I incorporate that in my proposals now, and people get really, really impressed. And that facilitates the conversation greatly. The second area where we use artificial intelligence is in the simplification of patient material. Clinical trial protocols are very, very complex. So imagine a patient informed consent form in front of a patient. It's a 30-page document that a regular patient, a regular person on the streets with very little education is going to be able to understand. And this is a requirement of international clinical trial guidelines that the patient informed consent form is simple, that anybody with basic schooling can understand. It is really a challenge. I've been present in a lot of the meetings where the investigators trying to explain the patient informed consent to a patient and the family member, and it's just difficult. So we came up with a way using artificial intelligence to simplify all these documents, the protocol, the informed consent, we can in 5 minutes we can come up with a landing page where we can create a screening form with conditional logic where the patient can self-screen himself or herself and understand the scope of the trial, etc. So those are ways that we're using artificial intelligence very effectively.
That is amazing. And I also want to mention that I was impressed by a scheduling assistant that you used. Yes.
Thank you. Yes. 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 Of course, other things here and there that we also use. The other way that we also use artificial intelligence is to generate content. Before, generating content was laborious. You have to have somebody who knew how to write and who also had the technical skills. So it was difficult to find somebody who can have both skills at the same time. So in the past few months, less than a year, I've been using artificial intelligence tools to create good content because a lot of what we do is about education. And that's another reason why you have the podcast. But generation of content, quality content is now easier. It can be disseminated easier, faster, and distributed faster on social media, on our blog. So that also helps create awareness of Latin America as a destination for clinical research so that we can make a greater impact.
Absolutely. And now I would like to focus on your career. How did you become a CEO of this company? And what was your path into this field?
Yes, Milena. I graduated from electrical engineering in Colombia, in Bogota. And I started my career in the telecom and networking world. I worked for a couple of companies in that space in Colombia for a couple of years after graduation. And then I decided to move to the United States permanently in 1995 or so. And I worked in the United States for Nortel and for Lucent Technologies, which were at the time some of the largest telecom and networking companies in the world, along with Siemens, Alcatel, Ericsson, Nokia. That's in the 2000s. And the industry went through a transition, is what people call the 2000 bubble bust. And I was affected by that. There were many layoffs in the industry. So I started doing other things. I tried different ventures in the telecom and networking space. Everything failed. And then I ventured into real estate. I was kind of forced to get into real estate by coincidence with some friends. And I saw that as a way for me to do something because there were no jobs, no anything in my industry at that time, telecom and networking. And I did really well in real estate. We created with a friend a good company, successful company that also failed 5 years later because of the 2007, 2008 market crash of the securities market, the real estate market. It was the Great Recession, as people call it. And we were affected. The company was affected. I was in bankruptcy almost again, because the first time I was in bankruptcy because the telecom and networking bubble bust. Then the second time was in bankruptcy because of the real estate bubble bust. And I was also forced to adapt and to innovate and to do something different. And then I took a sabbatical year. I wrote a book called La Cebolla de Pandora, Pandora's Onion in Spanish. And then my brother called me one day. Before that, I was able to secure a temporary position in Baltimore at the Johns Hopkins Hospital, at the Johns Hopkins University. And in the cardiology department, I was assisting the cardiology department with some IT, networking, and telecom needs that they had. And I was able to understand how a hospital works because I was part of the staff of the hospital. I was getting into doctors' offices, into the OR, into the conference rooms, and fixing or planning some improvements in the equipment, things like that. I made friends with a lot of physicians. I attended many, many talks because I also was in charge of the audiovisual technicalities of filming the ground rounds, as they call it, the weekly meetings that they have, etc. So I was really intrigued by the way a hospital works inside. So that was my first experience in the healthcare world, even though my father was a doctor and my brother was a doctor, but I wasn't really into the medical industry. So I spoke with my brother Pedro one day, and out of coincidence, he said to me, Julio, I'm doing these experiments, these projects in Colombia with my university colleagues, and we need some help with the importation of these experimental devices because doing more and more trials, it's just difficult to get them through customs in our personal luggage. They call too much attention, so we need to import them properly and this and that because, as I said, the first trials were very informal, but the operation started growing and needed to be sophisticated and professionalized more. So that's when I came in. And Pedro said to me, can you help us with this paperwork for the importation and the regulatory approvals and all that? I said, yeah, sure. I can help with that. I can learn how to do it. I've never done anything like that before. And that's what I did. I started learning and learning more and more. I was a one-man operation. I did regulatory approvals, ethics committee approvals. I did importation. I carried the boxes from the truck to the hospital. I did project management. I did the invoicing and QuickBooks. I did everything. It was a one-man operation. We only had at that time 1 or 2 clinical trials going on. So it was simple for one person to manage everything. Naturally, we started growing and started hiring people. And now we're a team of almost 50 members. So it's been a great experience, great journey.
Yes. Yeah. What was the biggest challenge for you in this process?
The biggest challenge for me in the process, I think, has been to scale the company in such a way that keeps creating value without becoming bureaucratic and slow. Because pretty much 100% of our clients are startups. 99.9% are startup companies. No more than 3 employees, some money in the bank. That's it. New companies. They were founded probably 3 years ago in Boston or in Minneapolis or in San Francisco. That's usually the places where clients are. And they are fast. They are nimble. They want fast answers. They want fast approvals. So as we grow, we need to be in sync with their needs, and we cannot become IQVIA, the big CRO, or Parexel, or PPD. If you pick up the phone or you send an email to IQVIA or Parexel, you're going to get an answer in a month if you're lucky. You're a small startup company. So we are growing. We have, of course, more systems, more procedures, more administrative things. But I want my clients to be able to pick up the phone and call me if they have something to resolve. So that's the essence that we want to keep as we grow. I think that's the biggest struggle. How do we scale and still maintain that startup mentality where we came from?
Yeah. So how did you do it? How did you manage it?
Well, we're still managing it. We haven't been successful yet, but I think we're still managing it. I think we're at a point with 50 employees, you can still manage it. But I envision this company with 100 employees in 2 years. So little by little, we have to somehow overcome that.
Yes. But at this stage, what do you think is important to keep in mind when scaling to still have this fluidity, flexibility, and fast pace?
I think the most important thing to keep in mind is you're really, really doing this for impact. Yeah, you can make a little bit of money here and there. You can have a nice lifestyle, that's not really the point. What really fulfills you is what I said at the beginning. When you see the impact that these type of trials have on patients, you can change their lives in half an hour, the time it takes to implant the device in the OR. And I think we have to keep that human touch and make sure that's really our driver. How can we elevate communities in Latin America, not only with the impact that just described on an individual patient, but also in the community, because we're bringing these projects that cost a lot of money and they generate jobs, high paying jobs, great salaries, and employ more and more people. So that's what I think about every day when I wake up. How can I create a greater impact? If I'm doing a trial in El Salvador today, how can I bring a similar trial to the country next door, to Honduras, so that they can also benefit from it? I think that's the main thing that keeps me awake.
Does absolutely make sense. And maybe you can share the challenging case that you worked on and how did you overcome that challenge? Because you had already quite a few of those trials.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we've done probably 50 or more of those trials. Well, one of the biggest challenges was during COVID. How do you make these trials a success during COVID? We had a trial that got approval right before COVID, right before the lockdowns. And then the lockdowns came. And then the issue was, how do we get patients in? Patients don't want to come to the OR, to the hospital, but the sponsor already invested all this money. The trial's approved. How do we move forward? How do we continue? How do we do the screening and all that so that we don't deviate from the protocol? I mean, many things we had to take into consideration. And well, we came up with innovative ways to do it. Of course, we pretty much forced the investigators to do teleconsults with the patients. That's the first step. We somehow managed to get the informed consent signed virtually. And once the patients were scheduled for the implantation procedure, part of the lockdowns were the inability to travel, because in our trials, in all of them, the sponsor needs to travel with the team from the United States to the country, and they have to scrub in and get into the OR and do the procedure with the local investigator. So how do we bring the team from the United States to the hospital in Colombia, in this case? So, because the local investigator is not an expert in the procedure, is not an expert in the experimental device, the US team is the expert because they designed the device. They've done 20 experiments in animals. They already know the procedure, but the local investigator doesn't. So he needs the help of the proctor, as we call it, the American doctor who is proctoring or helping with the procedures overseas. Yeah. So we came up with the idea of buying iPads. We imported the iPads from the United States through Amazon. Yeah. We got them into the hospital. We bought tripods. We put like 3 iPads with, of course, the cameras. In each iPad, we put Zoom, like we're doing today. And the team in the United States was able to connect to the Zoom call. And the 3 iPads were looking at the OR, looking at the patient and the investigator. And we had to get everybody headphones in the OR so that they communicate with the proctor in the United States. So the proctor was able to guide the local investigator on how to do the procedure safely on the patient. And we did successfully 30 patients, just like that.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I think what helped here, of course, your mindset that you developed over the years of these entrepreneurial ventures that you had.
Yes.
So,
yes.
What qualities do you think you developed over time that now help you and support your success and success of your company?
Yeah, persistence. Mm-hmm. I think it's persistence. I mean, if you believe in your business model, if you believe in the opportunity, if you believe in what you do, because you really, really see something that nobody else has ever seen, and you are the solution to the problem that you saw and nobody else has seen, you're going to get successful. You're going to be successful eventually. It takes time. It takes about 10 years for a company to be successful. That's kind of the average. If you read about it, that's usually what the experts say. It takes about 10 years for a company to mature. So we've been in business for 15 years now. The first 5 years were really Pedro and Dr. O'Neill doing the clinical trial work inside the university. But officially, the company was started in 2010. So we've been around for 15 years. So the first 10 years were really, really about building. And the past, I would say less than 5 years, the past 3, 4 years have been scaling. So now we are kind of going over the hump. I see that. I mean, revenue-wise, the way we present ourselves, the way we behave, the way people see us online, website, the proposals. It looks like we have learned the business, but it took us 10 years. Because remember, I didn't come from the contract research organization space, from the medical space. I came from the telecom and networking. I was clueless about medical terminology, about clinical research in general. So I had to learn, and my team had to learn. So it's been a great journey for us. Yeah.
That's amazing that you learned so much. And these are very specific things that you needed to learn. So regulatory.
Yes, very specific. Exactly.
So where do you see this field is heading? Or what is ahead of us? Where can you apply yourself in the future if you look like 5-10 years from now?
Well, I see, Milena, a much larger organization, of course, with a greater impact in the region. I see what's happening in Latin America. Slowly, you are seeing these countries maturing more and more, getting more people in the middle class, getting more healthcare infrastructure. I've seen the change. And I think that more and more trials are going to come to Latin America. I also see that countries are seeing clinical research as a great way for them to, of course, benefit patients, get a transfer of knowledge, and receive income. So they see clinical research as a source of foreign direct investment. And it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the patients. It's a win-win for the healthcare system because the care of the patients is usually paid by the sponsor. And the industry brings all this money that creates more jobs, high-paying jobs. It's just a win-win for everybody involved. Not to mention the transfer of knowledge, which is really, really more important, I think, overall, because these countries in Latin America will eventually become innovative countries. And by bringing these experts from the United States that are innovators, the Latin American investigators will start to understand how is it that innovation happens. And they will eventually become innovators in 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. But it's the initial step. If you want to learn something, you just bring somebody who is an expert at that field, and that person will teach you how to do it, and you eventually will become a master and will probably be better than your master, right? So that's usually how these countries get to the next level of development with science, technology, and innovation. So I see a great future for Latin America. Many more trials are going to come to the region. For example, just a month or two ago, were two announcements that are important. The first announcement was Velocity Research, the largest site network in the world, just announced an expansion into Latin America. They just hired somebody in Brazil to buy clinical research sites and create a regional research network in Mexico, Colombia, and Argentina, starting Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina, starting in those three countries. And they're going to expand to Colombia and to other places in Latin America. That's a major move for Velocity Research. And that's a validation of the maturity of the Latin American clinical research industry. And the other move is another company, I think it's called Scope Research or something like that. They just announced the acquisition of their second research site in Brazil. So this is a US company, very successful. Both of these companies, Velocity and Scope, are private equity backed companies. So private equity firms are really behind these investments in the region. So that tells you that there's great appetite, clinical research sites in Latin America.
Yeah, the change is coming, and I see the same is happening in neurotech industry as well.
Yes, of course.
And you mentioned that you have already over 50 employees in your company. So what are the career opportunities in your company or similar companies?
Well, I think the medical device industry is something that is being behind the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry got really, really mature about 20 years ago. And you saw the consolidation of this fragmented CRO space where you had all these little CROs, and then private equity starting acquiring CROs. And that's why you see IQVIA, PPD, Product Sale being so big now, because private equity saw the opportunity and invested on those CROs. But now the medical device industry is so mature because artificial intelligence, because of new manufacturing practices, because of the fact that devices are ubiquitous now. They're not in the hospital setting. They are outside. They are in your hands, in your pockets. They are in your house. So devices are just more advanced now. So the industry sees the need of having professionals helping these innovators as they saw the need in pharma years ago. So now private equity is investing in medical device contract research organizations. And there are a few that have been created in the past 5 years. This is very recent. So that's creating very exciting career opportunities for biomedical engineers or clinical research professionals in general that want to get expertise in medical device development and research and commercialization, of course. So, yeah, I think the opportunities are exciting, especially in Latin America, because before we existed, nobody knew about medical device clinical trials. We kind of invented the industry, the space in Latin America, and we are educating our staff. We take young medical doctors, physicians, bilingual, with no medical device training at all, except for what they know in their medical training. And we introduce them to the world of first in human medical device clinical trials. And that's an industry that they didn't know existed. They didn't know it existed. So they have gone through training. And the training usually takes about 2 or 3 years for these kids to really understand what we do at bioaccess. It takes that long. Once they grasp what we do, then they become experts, and we love them.
Yes, we have many biomedical engineers who want to transition to this type of jobs.
Yes.
So, what would be your recommendation for them? What skills should they possess in order to work in a company like yours?
I think the skill is basically clinical research. I mean, they can start very slowly in clinical research. They can start as a research assistants or study coordinators, junior study coordinators. But that's a great combination to have biomedical engineering background and the clinical research background. I mean, that's a winning combination for this industry, the medtech industry, because very few professionals have that combination.
Mm-hmm. So, should they already possess some clinical research background, or you would take on a person with a biomedical engineering background and then they can acquire that knowledge and skills?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, of course. Usually you learn the skills on the job. Of course, there are training courses that you can take online, certifications, that's all good. But the learning really happens on the daily activities of a job, of a company. And that's what we do, as I said. We mostly take physicians, not biomed engineers, it's physicians. In Latin America, bilingual physicians, because that's important, because they need to speak with the sponsors and understand the protocols in English. Everything is in English. And once they have those two qualifications, English skills and medical skills, of course, they're physicians, but they are very young. They're usually around 25 years old, something like that. And we take them in the journey of getting to learn the intricacies of medical device first in human research, which involves many things. I mean, project management involves protocol writing. Protocol writing meaning the actual study protocol, the investigator's brochure, the patient-informed consent, the case report forms, the uploading of the clinical data to EDC, electronic data capture platform, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a fascinating field to be in.
Yes, it is. And you already screened quite a few people, I think, for the job. What would you say is the best way for a potential employee to stand out? Yes, that you would really see, oh, yeah, that is a good candidate for the job.
I would say leadership skills. You have to be a leader. You have to come up with creative solutions to problems because we have problems every single day. something goes wrong every single day. And you have to be creative, somehow contribute to the solution, not be a problem. Just contribute to the solution. Hey, Julio, we have this situation. I already fixed it. I already proposed 3 solutions. So don't worry, we're going to make them work. One of those solutions is going to work. So, all right. So that's a leader in the making.
Yes. How would you look for those creative solution capabilities during the interviews?
It's difficult. It's really difficult, Milena. No, it's almost impossible. It's like being a mind reader. It's not easy. It's just a judgment call. It's a little bit of everything. You kind of read the person. I mean, it's based on what is it that you want to do in life. For example, if you are a physician, you come to me saying, Julio, I just graduated from medical school. I want a job. I love what you guys do. But, I am preparing myself for the exams. I want to get into residency. I want to become a vascular surgeon. I'm like, okay, but why do you want to work for me? Because it's going to take me 3 years for me to teach you what you need to know, for you to really be productive. And in 3 years, you're going to be out. You're going to be in residency to be a vascular surgeon. So there's no point in you joining my team. You can be the greatest person ever, but it doesn't make any sense for neither of us to engage.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that there are opportunities and for medical doctors and
yes,
also in Latin America, there are those options, and that is absolutely amazing.
Yes, it is.
And as we are nearing the end of our podcast, I would like to ask you about your podcast.
Yes.
I was so surprised to hear about it. Can you tell our listeners, maybe they also would want to listen to your podcast?
Absolutely, Milena. Yes. What happens is that years ago, when I started bioaccess, I understood that, as you said correctly, that this is very niche information. What we do is very niche. It's not something out there that you find easily online. We had to learn by force, trial and error, making many mistakes. And I struggled a lot at the beginning. And that's one thing. The other thing is I understood that a lot of my clients were asking the same questions over and over and over. And I said, I should probably set up a blog to answer those questions. So if somebody asks me a question, I already have the answer ready. Just send them the link. That's it. So I started with an FAQ, a frequently asked question section on the website. So you have all the questions answered. You don't have to bother me, spend an hour on the phone with me, asking me the same question that I already answered. So just send you the link. Yeah. And if you have questions, then we're going to have a more productive conversation, right? So that's kind of the genesis. And then I started blogging. I started writing articles. The FAQ was first, and then articles, because I noticed that some of the questions were more common than the other ones. So I needed to expand on those specific topics. So I decided to create an article for that specific topic that was common. So I started writing. And then somebody on LinkedIn saw me writing these articles about medical device clinical trials in Latin America. It's an exotic topic that nobody has ever written about. And that person was the chief editor of a publication in the United States, Med Device Online. And that's a large group in the United States of different publications. And he said to me, Julio, are you interested in being a guest writer in our publication? I'm like, sure, why not? So he's like, all right, send me a proposal, come up with a topic and give me an outline of what you want to write about, and we get you published. I'm like, oh, great. So then I wrote the first article, and I probably wrote 2 or 3 more with them. I was happy. But then I needed to write an article about the EU MDR and the changes in Europe, and as regulatory changes, the new law in Europe for medical devices. And there was very, very little information online to write the article. There was no source information. I couldn't find references. I couldn't find material to write the article. So what I did was I started interviewing people. I found many people in the industry on LinkedIn who were interested in me interviewing them for the article. And I did like 20-something interviews, and I created these relationships. I made friends because we spent an hour together on the phone talking about different things, about the article, about different things. We became friends. And then I said, people have so much information in their heads, but it's nowhere out on the internet. Nobody can find the expertise that these people have in their heads. So that's a disservice for humanity, for the industry, for the world. How can I get people's experience and expertise from their heads into paper, onto the web? And that's when the idea of the podcast came about. And I said, it's a great vehicle to talk to people all day long and make friends, create content that educates more people and contributes to society and to the industry and really make a better impact. Yeah. So, and it's also good for business because some of those guests or become my clients eventually, or tell somebody else about me. So it's a great way to disseminate what we do at bioaccess. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And what is the name of your podcast so our listeners can listen?
Yes, it's called LatAm MedTech Leaders. LatAm, like Latin America, LatAm MedTech Leaders podcast.
Thank you. And we will add this information into our podcast notes. Also, can you tell our listeners how they can find information about your company, get in touch with you? Maybe there are already some startups that would be interested in your services.
Yes. Well, the website of the company is bioaccess LA, like Latin America, bioaccessla.com. And I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. Just look for Julio Martinez Clark on LinkedIn or Google me and you're going to find me. I'm all over the internet, it looks like, because I've been interviewed. I write so much that I'm easily searchable on Google.
Yes. When you were talking about writing, I had this question about current possibilities to write with AI. How do you look at that? What is your preference about writing yourself or writing with AI? Or you're thinking about some combination? Do you want to preserve still that authenticity of a person writing, or you also accept certain involvement of AI? How do you look at that?
Well, right now, I've seen the evolution of AI. I've seen how sophisticated it's becoming. I've seen the deep research feature of Perplexity, for example, and other models. Now, my first approach is AI. Let AI write the article, the outline, and then I read it and I go over it. And then I complement. I put my touches here and there. I fix this, I fix that. I update the numbers because sometimes they give me wrong information or wrong numbers. So they list the wrong name of a regulatory agency in a country, or sometimes it cites old sources. So I get in, I spend an hour or so just fixing things here and there, or add another angle to the topic so that it can help me really give the reader a better understanding of the topic. So yeah, but the first approach now is AI. I don't do the first draft manually myself as I used to, just reading 20 articles, copying, pasting, fixing, then writing. No. Now it's all AI, and then I intervene in the final product.
Yes, thank you for sharing it. It's just interesting how you are doing also because you like the AI, you integrate it in various procedures in the company. So I was very curious how you handled this.
Yes. Yeah. It's been very, very helpful for us. Very helpful.
Yes.
For example, the conclusion. You can write the body of the article and have AI write the introduction and the conclusion, because the introduction has to be a winning introduction. I mean, you really, really have to be an expert copywriter to create a winning introduction. And AI can do it for you much better than you can do it. And that helps the reader. It's not cheating, it's helping the reader understand the topic with enthusiasm so that they read the whole article and they educate themselves. And then the conclusion. So I also use AI for the conclusion a lot. And it writes some winning conclusion that summarize the topic and drills down the topic in the head of the reader. So yeah, it's very helpful.
And one more question I have, Julio. You mentioned that several companies that you established, they didn't survive.
Yes.
What mindset helped you to still keep going, to create another company? And then start it again and develop.
Yeah.
And then again, there is something.
Yes. Yeah.
So what is that keeps you going, keeps you motivated no matter what?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I was part of corporate America. I was an employee for many years, 15 years or so. And I wanted to have control of my life. I think it's about control, about controlling your environment, controlling what you do, how you dress, controlling how much you make, controlling who you talk to. It's about control, not in a bad way, in a good way. You want to control your destiny. And if you're an employee, you have little control over that, unfortunately. And you can be the CEO of a large corporation. You're still an employee making $1 million or $10 million, but you are still the CEO. You're an employee. You have 401k plan. You're spending a lot of money because you need a mansion and you need a wife and kids and a dog. So you're still an employee. You're not an entrepreneur. So I prefer to push my own Honda Civic for my own business than drive somebody else's Cadillac.
Yeah.
I think that's how I think about life. That's the drive. I want to impact people. I want to create jobs. I want to create things. That's me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to the beginning entrepreneurs?
Well, come up with solutions to problems and create a company around that. Sometimes it's difficult. I know it's not easy, but just switch the mindset. I'm not helping to solve somebody else's problem. I am identifying problems in society, in the industry, that nobody else has tackled before, nobody else has solved before. How can I solve those problems? I think that's the mindset that you have to be a successful entrepreneur, an entrepreneur in general. Yeah. Because at the beginning, you're not going to be successful. You're going to fail.
Yeah.
But you learn. You learn how to raise money, how to overcome issues. You learn about technology because at the beginning, you are a one-man operation. You have to do everything. So you acquire these skills
Mhm.
that otherwise you wouldn't have acquired, because if you're an employee, you have one job description.
Mhm.
And that's what you do. You just move this cable from here to here. That's your job. You get paid every week. You're not going to learn new skills just by doing that for 20 years.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I asked it because there are so many people who want to create their own startups, their new products in neurotech industry. And I think that's
Yes.
a great advice. That
Yes. Yeah. Especially in the medical industry. I mean, every day there are problems with patients in the hospital settings with instruments. There's always something that doesn't work. And people have done it for years, and there hasn't been any innovation in those circumstances. And that's where you can come in and intervene and do something differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We covered a range of topics. It was an amazing interview. Thank you so much, Julio. Is there anything that you want to mention at the end of our podcast? Maybe something that I haven't asked you, but you would like to talk about it?
Well, Milena, I think the biggest topic of discussion here is a change of paradigm. It's a shift in people's paradigms. It's a shift in how you see the world. It's not about being entrepreneur, not being entrepreneur. It's not about creating this or that. I think it's about looking at the world differently. How can I contribute to humanity? How can I impact people's lives? What am I here for? To get paid every week, have vacations once a year, buy a house, retire, watch TV? Is that what I want to do? I mean, what impact? How many jobs I'm creating? How many lives I'm transforming? What I do. I think that's the biggest thing here. That's the invitation.
Yes, and actually, so many people are coming to me as a Neurocareers coach, and they're saying, we want to create impact.
Yes. Yeah.
Young students, young professionals, they're coming and saying, we want to make a difference. We want to create an impact.
Exactly.
And they say, but we don't know how to start. What should we do? So, what would be your recommendation for those who are asking these questions?
Hang out with people who have done it. Change your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Change your friends. I think if you are in a table having breakfast or having coffee with 5 entrepreneurs, 5 successful business owners,
Yeah.
you're going to be the 6th eventually. But if you're in a table with 5 employees, 5 people with different mindset where you want to go, different from what you envision, then you're not doing anything at that table. You're not contributing. I mean, you're just wasting your time. You're in the wrong table. It's as simple as that.
So, choose the right table.
Because they're going to perpetrate.
Choose the right table.
Choose the right table. Exactly. Choose the right table. That's the message.
Okay, choose the right table.
Choose the right table. A table where where you have nothing to say because you don't understand what they're talking about, but you're going to become one of them eventually if you keep sitting at that table.
Thank you so much, Julio. Thank you. It was very inspiring conversation. We wish you all possible success. It's all our listeners and I are wishing you all the best and looking forward to hearing from you maybe in a couple of years again on our podcast and see where you are.
You never know. You never know, Milena.
So,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, Julio.
Thank you for having me here. Bye-bye. Take care.
Yeah, pleasure. Bye-bye. Bye. Dear Neurocareers podcast listeners, thank you for joining me and my incredible guests on this exciting journey into careers in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. I hope you've been inspired by the stories of those turning groundbreaking ideas into impactful realities. If you are looking for more guidance on advancing your neurocareer, book a free consultation with me, Dr. K, your podcast host and neurocareers coach at the Institute of Neuroapproaches, the only career service dedicated specifically to the needs of professionals in neurotech. Let's take the next step toward your neurocareer success together. In addition to free consultations, the Institute of Neuroapproaches offers a variety of services designed to help you thrive in neurotech. First, professional development planning. We help you create a tailored career development plan, identify knowledge gaps, and equip you with the tools needed to achieve your goals in neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Second, resume and cover letter review. Get expert feedback on how to craft documents that are specifically designed for job opportunities in the neurotech field. Third, interview preparation. Sharpen your interview skills through mock interviews and targeted feedback, including soft skills, hard skills in neurotech, BCIs, e.g., MEG, live coding, and presentation preparation. 4. Networking and job search strategy. Learn how to effectively network and uncover job opportunities while standing out in the competitive neurotech job market. 5. Negotiation and salary advice. Receive expert guidance on negotiating salaries and benefits and determining a fair salary range for your desired position. All this and more can be found at www.neuroapproaches.org. Again, www.neuroapproaches.org. So, what are you waiting for? Let's navigate the path to success in the world of neurocareers together and turn the impossible into possible. We're looking forward to working with you.